Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to our meeting. I'm Ninelia, one of the directors of Monday meetings. Before we get started, we have the announcement for this week. So December 4th, we will have gingerbread decorating. Please sign up to participate. December 6th, we will have fundraising to present on how to prepare for internship at full-time positions. And December 6th at 5 p.m., we will have AA elections for president and vice president. We encourage everyone to have their cameras on, and please wait until the end to ask your questions with the raise hand feature on the Zoom. We have Matteo Gold from Claremont Graduate University presenting on master education. Please, Matteo, you can start your presentation.
Okay, perfect. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. And then can I just get a thumbs up from folks if they can see it? All right, perfect. Well, thank you again. Thank you again for hosting me. Like Nenelia said, my name is Matthew Gold. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions here at the Drucker School of Management at Claremont Graduate University. I'm going to talk to you today a little bit just about Business School 101. So just about the basics of what you can expect with business school, how to prepare for business school, all of that. So just to give a quick overview again of what we're going to talk about today. So first we'll talk about how to explore your options, finding your fit, navigating the application process, understanding a little bit about graduate financial aid, a little bit about how to thrive in a professional program, and then we'll wrap up before questions just a little bit about the Drucker School to get a sense of what we do over here at Claremont and how all of this ties together. So for those of you who may be familiar with Peter Drucker, who our school is named after, if you look him up, you'll probably find a million quotes by Peter Drucker. So we like to begin pretty much all of our presentations with a quote from the man himself. But this quote in particular, knowledge has become the key resource of the world economy, definitely speaks to the value of a graduate education and really what the core of a graduate education is. Much like your bachelor's degree, but on kind of a heightened level, it really is about building knowledge and marketing yourself for positions and growth afterwards, but also to help you thrive in your career after graduation. Okay, so first, when you're starting this process of looking at graduate school, whether you're a freshman in your undergrad or a senior, or even after you graduate, the first things that you really need to do before you really start looking into different programs is you really want to start thinking about your options and think about really in particular your aspirations. What is your end goal with this? Do you want to get a master's degree? Do you maybe want to even go on for a PhD one day? Do you just want to get, maybe just a certificate program, but really digging deep into understanding what is your goal when it comes to continuing your education past your bachelor's degree, because there are definitely a lot of different options and a lot of different ways that you can go. And depending on even what your career aspiration is, so you want to consider your career aspiration as well. One may serve you better than the other, one may not serve you at all. So it's really important that you go through this thought process of understanding, okay, this is the direction that I want to go. This is what I want to do professionally, and then kind of working backwards from there to then find programs that fit into that mold. And then the other things is, again, really understanding that there's a lot of options in front of you when it comes to graduate programs. So what can a grad or professional degree do for you? First, it's going to give you a depth and breadth of knowledge. Like that quote said earlier, knowledge is very valuable, and it's going to give you a lot of knowledge, either depending on your program, maybe very broadly or very specialized. That's another thing that you'll need to think about. We'll talk about that actually on the next slide, is specialization. Some programs are very broad. Some can really focus in on very specific areas. So you want to think about what direction you want to go when it comes to that specialization. Probably one of the most, these next 2 points are probably the most important pieces of a graduate education. First and foremost is a great way to network and make connections. Every graduate program worth its salt is all about networking. It's connecting you with your peers in the program. It's about connecting you with alumni from the program, and it's also about connecting you with faculty and their professional networks as well. That networking piece is probably one of the most important parts. The next piece, I think, is actually the most important part, and that's experience. With any type of education, the education itself, the degree itself is fantastic, but it's nothing if you don't have the resume to go along with it. So every graduate program that's a professional focused program, which is probably what you all are going to be looking at, should have some sort of practical element, whether it's something built directly into the curriculum itself or just an emphasis within the program. You want to make sure that there's opportunities to get professional experience, whether it be internships or part-time positions, or a lot of programs will also do like practicum type options. But you want to make sure that you're actually getting the opportunity to do that practical experience. Then finally, marketability. Economies kind of ebb and flow in terms of how much job opportunities are out there. Sometimes a bachelor's degree, when the economy is really good, can set you up for a lot of success and definitely help propel you into employment afterwards. And sometimes when the economy is not so good, a master's degree can kind of be that missing piece that helps you get a leg up on your essentially your competition when you're applying to programs. It's also great marketability for growth within your program, getting promotions, all of that. So definitely a master's degree, an advanced degree on your resume definitely makes you more marketable. So like I said, especially within the professional world, there's definitely that conversation of whether you want to go for a specialized degree or for something a little bit more general like an MBA. There's definitely pluses and minuses for both of those. So since I know this is the accounting club, there are MS in accounting out there or MS in finance or things along those lines, but they're very specialized degrees and they're really focused on one type of career path. So they're fantastic if you do see yourself staying long-term within this area. It also is great if you really want to dig into kind of the nitty-gritty of this field. So most MS programs like this are going to have CPA training, focus on taxation and finance, things that are really important to the career itself. But an MBA still could serve you well in this area. You can still focus on these areas. A lot of MBA programs have specializations and concentrations where you kind of focus there, but it also kind of gives you the ability to pivot. So if you find maybe 2-3 years into your career as an accountant that maybe this isn't the right area for you, or maybe you see yourself more in a management role, doing the MBA still gives you the specialized degrees, but also gives you the opportunity to kind of step into other positions, whether it be in your same field or even outside of your field. So again, there's kind of pluses and minuses to both. With a specialized degree, you really get to build those hard skills and really focus in on that area, and definitely great if you see yourself in a long-term career in that space. But a generalized degree can give you a little bit of that focus, maybe not as focused as the specialized degree, but still opens up a lot of doors for you. So that's something that you want to think through when you're thinking about your fit in your program, is whether you want to go specialized or more generalized. And then once you've kind of made that decision, you have an idea of what direction you want to go in terms of your graduate education, then it's about finding your fit. I know that there's kind of this thought, especially when it comes to things like MBA and professional programs, that all are the same pretty much, and all of them may have relatively similar curriculum. But every program is going to have their own specializations, their own kind of the places where they shine, a better network for certain types of career options. So doing your research and finding a good fit for the type of program that you're looking for is definitely really important. Well, for folks here, it is, in Southern California, in the Los Angeles area, you're definitely in luck because there's plenty of options for these type of degree programs. So you won't have to go look too far, but it's definitely worth doing the research and really understanding what programs you're applying to and where their specializations are. Make sure that when you're talking to folks in the admissions office or to faculty even, that you're kind of outlining your needs and your professional goals, that they know it's a good fit on their end as well. They want to set you up for success as well. Get to know the faculty. This is really important. I think a lot of people overlook this when it comes to professional degrees. Their specializations, their professional networks, their consulting businesses, all of that are going to affect you while you're in the program and really help set you up for that networking piece, that experience piece. So it is worth kind of taking some time to look through the core faculty and the adjunct faculty that typically teach with the program and see if you can connect with them as well. It's also going to give you a really good insight into what kind of attention you're going to get as a student if you reach out to them and they're really responsive as well. So take the time to get to know the faculty beforehand. Talk to alumni and current students. This is really definitely something that I highly suggest as well. You know, when you talk to faculty, when you talk to, you know, staff like myself within the admissions office, we can give you a pretty good idea of what the program is, talk a little bit more about the curriculum, but we really can't speak to the student experience unless we're an alum ourselves. So it's really important, I think, to take the time to connect with alumni and current students. And they may have, you know, obviously, whoever you're going to talk to definitely is going to have a positive experience because they wouldn't be put in front of you otherwise. But they're also going to be a little bit more honest about their experience as well. They can tell you about the negatives and the positives and kind of how that outweighs, because every program is going to have its positives and negatives. And you just got to think about what positives outweigh those negatives for you in your particular circumstance. And explore student services. I think this is also something that students don't think about when looking at a graduate program. A lot of times, especially at larger universities, the student services can kind of be bundled together with undergraduate students. So you want to explore those services to make sure to see what's available to you as a graduate student and what's maybe focused on graduate, what's focused on undergraduate, but see what type of opportunities are there too. And by student services, this includes like career development centers. This includes financial aid, dean of students. So all of these things are going to help support you as a student. So it's important to look through those as well beyond just the curriculum and the faculty. When it comes to the application itself, most programs are going to have relatively similar application models. This is definitely kind of in line with our program at the Drucker School, but again, most are going to have pretty similar requirements. So first, you're going to have to do an online application. Pretty much everything is online. No more paper applications, which is nice. The one thing though is that there's not a ton of things like a Common App or CSU Apply option, unless you're looking at a CSU. But even then, a lot of the graduate programs will have separate systems that they go out of. So when you're thinking about applying to different schools, make sure you kind of see what their system is and then plan accordingly, because you may have to do separate applications for each of the different programs that you're looking at. You'll need to send in official transcripts, though a lot of programs will take unofficial transcripts, especially if you're wrapping up your undergraduate program. A copy of your resume. This will probably be pretty reflective of the same type of resume that you would turn in for a job interview, though it may be a little bit different. You may include things like academic honors or maybe add internships that you wouldn't otherwise, but it'll probably be pretty similar, especially if you're looking at a professional program. And then this one doesn't apply since everybody here would be earning a degree within the US, but some programs, if you are an international student, may ask you to turn in updated IELTS or TOEFL scores if you're an international student. A lot of programs are still requiring the GRE or the GMAT as well. That's an important thing to ask, see if there are options to waive that exam requirement depending on the program. But if you do have to take the exam, and even if it's optional, I would still probably recommend still considering taking one of these exams. Anything that you can do to improve your profile, whether it be specifically for admissions or for funding options, is definitely worth it. And for most professional programs, whether it be MBAs or finance or that type of program, a GMAT is probably going to be a little bit more impactful, or they may even ask specifically for the GMAT outside the GRE. It's focused on business and professional programs, but definitely worth clarifying with the programs you're applying to see which exam they prefer or which exam they require. You'll always need some letters of recommendation. I would say that if you are looking at professional programs, it's probably best, I think you could do academic recommendations if you have some faculty that you feel you can lean on to offer some good letters of recommendation. That definitely works for these type of programs. But I do know that, so I went to a Cal State myself for my undergrad, so I know that how hard it is to build those connections at large schools like this, and to even if you're in somebody's class like 4 times in your program, they still may not remember who you are. But in that case, and I think especially with professional programs, professional references can be just as valuable. So whether it be from an internship or a part-time position, since you're going to a program that's focused on work, getting a professional recommendation can still be really impactful. And I think also too, with letters of recommendation, it's really important to find somebody that knows you well is the other thing. Don't think too much about title. Don't think about status in that respect. Like, you know, an example of that would be, oh, the chair of my department would be a really good person to write my letter of recommendation. But, you know, I've met them once or twice at like a mixer or something like that. They probably recognize my name, but, you know, they don't know me that well. You could ask them and they probably would still write you a letter of recommendation, but their recommendation would be very generic, very basic. It would say, you know, so-and-so is a great student, met them a couple of times, I've heard good things about them, they would do well in your program, which is a fine letter of recommendation. But a strong letter of recommendation is somebody that you've worked really, really closely with. So whether it be like an adjunct faculty member that you've had a chance to work with really closely, or you know, if you worked at internship your entire undergrad and really got to know your supervisor, you know, they can talk about the little things, the things that really speak to success in a graduate program because they worked with you so closely. Another thing that's probably a good idea to do with any of your recommenders is send them a copy of your resume and your statement. This can help them kind of really write a more effective recommendation, because they can say, okay, well, I thought that they were interested in this, but this confirms that they were interested in this. So I'll really kind of, you know, hone in on this to make sure that we're talking about the same things in our different documents. You'll need to turn in a statement of purpose. Every school is different. So you really want to take the time to look at those requirements and make sure that you're writing an effective statement for each different program. And that's another thing too, that last point there, creating strong written materials. I think probably the most important thing is to write separate letters of or separate statement of purposes or personal statements for each different program. Don't create a template. That can create a very generic statement and not a very effective essay. And it also leaves room for error. I can't tell you how many times I've had people send in their letters of recommendation. It's for a completely different school because they forgot to change out the names before they uploaded it. But by not templating, that kind of helps you avoid that error. And then pretty much every business school or professional school is probably going to require an interview. You usually get an invitation for this after you've sent in all of your different materials. Some programs have very specific rounds, so you want to pay attention to that as well. Like a lot of MBA programs will have a round one that's pretty early on, and then as they kind of get more students in, more students commit, they'll do more and more rounds until they filled their class. Other programs will do rolling admissions as well, but even then you want to be mindful of getting your application early to make sure that space is still available. And then the one thing I'll say with the interview as well, you know, a tip I think that has helped me in my interviews, and I think also other students, is if you get an invitation to the interview, just keep in mind that you're qualified for the program. I think that takes a lot of pressure off of the process. I think that kind of helps, helps calm the nerves a little bit. The interview is not about, oh, is this person going to be qualified for our program? You're qualified if you've gotten an invitation to the interview. This is more about fit. This is about finding out who you are, kind of what your motivations are, digging a little bit deeper. So it's really about trying to get to know you a little bit better. So I know this is cliche, but be yourself in the interview. And if the program is a good fit for you, they'll admit you to the program. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit and talking about financial aid on the graduate level, because it is very different from probably what you're experiencing now as an undergraduate student. First and foremost, the options for aid are pretty limited compared to undergrad. Unfortunately, especially on the state and federal level, the type of support systems that are available to students aren't quite at the graduate level yet, but there still are a lot of options and opportunities to fund your graduate education. FAFSA, if you're eligible, is still a really great and reliable resource. First off, can give you access to student loans. The plus side of student loans on the graduate side is that you can pretty much do everything through federal and FAFSA loans. So very rarely will you need to turn to private lenders if you're looking, if you're eligible for those loans. So you can keep those low interest rates, easy repayment schedules. So it does at least make that a little bit more accessible and a little bit easier. Fellowships, a lot of programs do offer opportunities to get funding from the program. So when you apply, there may be a separate application, or it may be something that's given to you upon admission. But a lot of programs do have institutional funding to help pay for their, to help bring in students as well. So it's, if you don't receive anything, it's always worth asking just to see what type of opportunities are there. Grants and scholarships. There's also external grants and scholarships. There's always opportunities to apply to things outside of what the institution is providing. I'm going to put this in the chat. I need to open up the chat. Sorry, I'm terrible at multitasking. But this is a great resource if you haven't already taken advantage of this. Fastweb.com is a really great resource to find external scholarships and grants. If you're still have a few years left in your undergrad, you can even take advantage of this in your undergrad. You create a profile, which means that everything they send you is related specifically to what you may be eligible for. So you don't have to look through a list of hundreds of thousands of grants and scholarships. But if you take the time to apply, it usually always equates to money, whether it be a couple $100 to help pay for books and supplies, or a few $1,000s to help support your tuition. Either way, taking the time to apply for these opportunities is definitely worth it. Again, and you can take advantage of this even in your undergrad right now. So definitely do some research and see if you can find those opportunities. And then on-campus employment, this is always a great opportunity. Through FAFSA, you also may be eligible for work study. There is still work study on the graduate side as well if you're eligible. But even then, these may relate back to the type of program that you're doing. If you're in an accounting program, they may need grad assistance in their accounting or like in the university finance. But also too, I would say there's a lot of opportunities for external internships off campus that you could take advantage of as well. I would say that in your first year, if you're just looking for funding, it's probably it's not a bad idea to apply for any on-campus positions. But if you're in a multi-year program, after that first year, that's when I would start to look for internships off campus, whether they're paid or unpaid, or on-campus positions that relate back to your program. Like I said, that experience piece is probably the most valuable part of a graduate education. So you want to make sure that you're still able to take advantage of that piece. And then there are still a lot of other opportunities. So I mentioned federal work study. If you take some time to go and work before you go back to graduate school, see if your employer has any sort of tuition or admission programs. Veterans benefits, if you are a veteran or the dependent of a veteran, you can use those benefits depending on your classification for graduate school. So it's worth looking into that as well. I mentioned federal loans and FAFSA. And then again, for the most part, you should be able to go, if you're eligible for FAFSA, you should be able to stick with just federal loans. But there are still private lenders out there that are good opportunities. I would just say take the time to do research in them, see what those interest rates are, see what those repayment options are, because not all private lenders are created equal. Some are definitely better than others. So you want to make sure you do some research there. And also look at credit unions. I think a lot of people don't think about this, whether it be to refinance your loans or to look for loans. If you have like a savings account with a credit union, sometimes they offer some really great low interest loans that you can take advantage of. Okay. So now shifting gears and thinking about what to expect in a professional degree program, and then also on the next slide, how to thrive in that program. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the graduate space, the main thing that you'll notice first is it's fewer classes but more work. A full-time student at most graduate programs is 3 classes in a given semester. And I know typically on the undergrad side, it's about 5 to 6 classes as considered a full-time student. But this is because there's different expectations. There's going to be more work. There's more reading that's usually associated with graduate level classes, longer papers that you'll have to write, but also too, the expectation is that you're doing things outside of the classroom too. Again, whether it be those internships or getting involved in clubs or organizations on campus, all those things to help build your experience. But that is also, again, any program worth its salt is going to have a big emphasis on that experience piece. There's also going to be more guidance, I feel like, whether you go to a large institution or a small private institution. Faculty are usually a little bit more attentive to graduate students because you're usually dealing with less. And then also too, most faculty love to work with graduate students, whether master's or PhD students. So I think the type of connections that you build with faculty is definitely a lot closer. You'll definitely get a lot more guidance, whether it be from the staff or the program staff or the faculty on career aspirations and building your network and all of that. But then again, with all of that, there's also greater responsibility. There's not a ton of assignments leading up to your larger paper. There's just a large paper due at the end of the semester, or there's not as many check-ins or busy work or whatever you might call it, because the expectation is that you've built those skills in your undergrad, and now in the graduate program, you're ready to kind of step in and do that higher level of work. But again, that's not to say that there isn't going to be help there. If you feel like maybe your writing isn't super great, there's always writing centers at these different programs that will help you on the graduate level side. If you have trouble with public speaking or something like that, there's always opportunities in programming and student services around there as well. But the expectation is that you'll then go off and find those opportunities on your own, or at least ask somebody to kind of point you in the direction there. And really how to thrive, it's about putting yourself out there. It's about really diving into these programs, especially if you're going to the program full time. So you definitely want to network, you want to put yourself out there, connect with your peers in your classroom, especially if it's a cohort-based model. Because those people might be your connection for a job 2 or 3 years after you graduate, because they may be working somewhere that you want to go. Or it's just a great way to kind of, they may know somebody who knows somebody who can get you a job. But networking is really great. Utilize that LinkedIn if you haven't already, but definitely put yourself out there, talk to as many people as you can to help build your professional network. Another thing is guard your time. Unfortunately, graduate school pretty much is going to be your entire life while you're in graduate school. There's just no other way around it. But that's because, again, you're doing really important work and you're really kind of digging in and building yourself up. You're going to be a master in whatever you are. So you want to, it's going to be a lot of work. So you really want to make sure you guard your time and, I think set expectations for those around you. But it's important, I think, to join study groups. This is a great networking opportunity, but also a way, if there's 100 pages of reading in a week, and you're in a group of 3 people, you may be able to break that up into thirds and say, okay, you just take extensive notes on this and kind of help you out there. It's also a great way to, for the final exam, to still make sure everybody's on the same page and to build that network more. Build a schedule out for yourself as well, if that's not something that you already do. Make sure that you're planning ahead for readings, that you're planning ahead for projects, to spend time on this stuff, because a lot of times with graduate school, since there aren't those little assignments that lead up to the big one, you kind of forget like, oh, I have a 15-page paper due in a week. I probably should have started that earlier. So you want to create some schedules and plan ahead and work smarter and use your resources. And also too, within graduate school, this is a chance to find your passion. I think something that is really a great benefit of being in school still is to get a chance to step outside of your comfort zone and try something new. You may have a very specific idea of where your career trajectory is today, but you may take a class in entrepreneurship or supply chain or something completely outside of what you're doing right now and say, actually, this is where I want to be. This is the direction that I want to go. And graduate school will give you the opportunity to kind of shift focus and find something new. It may not happen that way. You may come out of graduate school with the same exact professional goal that you did when you came in, but I think it's still a good idea to kind of step outside and build those new skills, try something new, and see if that helps you kind of push you in a new direction. And then also to find a mentor or be a mentor. Mentorship, I think, is really influential when it comes to the graduate space. So if you can be a mentor, if you can't find a mentor, I think that's also a great way to give back. And ask lots of questions. I think that's another way to help find your passion. Everybody there, whether it be faculty, staff, or whatever, they're there to help you kind of explore these different passions and move in the right direction. So ask questions, because everybody's going to be there to support you. All right, so shifting gears now and talking specifically about the Drucker School where I work. because definitely want to give a little shout out to my program here, because it may actually be of interest to some of the folks here. So we are Claremont Graduate University. We're a small liberal arts university, and we're a graduate only institution as well. So all of our faculty are only working with graduate students on the master's or PhD level, and really within the Drucker School, just within the master's program, since we don't offer a lot of doctoral programs there. We have a small student to teacher ratio, 1:8. And also too, we think about business school a little bit different than maybe some other programs do. I mentioned Peter Drucker at the beginning of this presentation. He was more than just a quotable person. He had a lot of really great and interesting philosophies on business and management that were very socially conscious, focused on the humanistic aspect, focused on leadership and entrepreneurship. And we've taken those ideas and definitely kept building on them and kept making them more and more modern. But we think about business school a little bit of different ways. I would definitely recommend taking some time to do some research into Peter Drucker, because you'll learn about him in any business school. But if you really enjoy his stuff, definitely, and want to dig into that more, this is a great place to focus under the school of Peter Drucker. We definitely have a diverse population here, and diverse in all senses of the word. We offer a lot more flexibility because we aren't a cohort-based program. We offer the opportunity to do concentrations and certificate program, and we have dedicated career services to our graduate students, and specifically dedicated for our Drucker School of Management. So a great opportunity to create those networks, and they do a lot. It's our Office of Career Strategy, and it's probably one of the best resources that we offer as a school. And they do everything from helping you, search for internships and jobs after you graduate. They'll even go as far as after you start landing positions and getting offers, they'll help you negotiate your salary. They're basically career consultants that you have access to for essentially for life. So as a student and even as an alumni. So a great resource there. In terms of some of the degrees that we offer, I think would be relevant to the folks here. We do have our traditional full-time MBA program. We also have part-time options too, and what's called our Flex MBA, though that may be, that's more of our executive type MBA. So if you do decide to take some time off, work for 5-6 years, decide to come back, the Flex might be a good program. But for now, probably our full-time or part-time program is the best way to go. It's 48 units, which takes about 2 years to complete. If you're going to go full-time, and then we have a ton of different areas that you can focus on as part of this program. Though again, an MBA is pretty generalized. Most of the curriculum is going to have you focus on a lot of different things, everything from leadership to business analytics to finance to microeconomics, all of that kind of stuff. But you can focus on things like finance or supply chain or marketing, depending on kind of the direction that you want to take your program. We also have what's called our MA in Management. This is a pretty fun degree. It's a 32-unit program, can be done in a year and a half or a year, depending on how quickly you want to take this program. I call it the anti-MBA MBA. It still focuses on a lot of the things that an MBA does, but it just offers so much more flexibility than our MBA. So if you want to do like that management school stuff, but you don't really care about the MBA, but you want a shorter program, this is a great opportunity. It's about 10 units of core classes that'll focus on management and some hard skills. And then the entire rest of the program is elective units. So you can hyper focus on something, like if you really wanted to focus on marketing, you can turn this into a marketing degree. Or if you just want to explore different areas and really just kind of take that time to explore different ideas within business without that set curriculum of an MBA, you can take this program as well, and has a lot of the same concentrations if you want to go into those different concentrations. And as opposed to our MBA, which typically does have some sort of work requirements, or at least a more competitive student would have more work experience, this program does not require any work experience. And then finally, our MS in Finance. Not so much in kind of the CPA area, more of like the CFA side, so more other areas of traditional finance. And certainly a lot of places you could take into the accounting sphere as well. It's a 32-unit program, so again, a year to a year and a half, focuses on everything from corporate finance to fintech, And then also too, you'll do an asset management practicum as part of that program. And we're CFA aligned as well. So it would help you prepare for the CFA exams 1 through 3 if this is the direction that you wanted to go. We do have one prerequisite, which is financial accounting, which more than likely you probably took that in your undergrad. And if not, if you didn't want to do it as before the program, you can also just add, it's 2-unit class, so it'll be a 34-unit program instead of 32 units. I mentioned a little bit about our diversity here. We definitely do have a good representation of Southern California where we are. So about, this is from our last year's census. I do need to update it as we have a newer census, but from what I saw from the initial numbers is pretty close still. You know, about 60% of our entire business school is women, so some good gender parity there. About 30% of our students are international, so we do have a good representation of domestic students, but also students bringing in that international perspective when it comes to the world of finance and business. And then 67% domestic students of color. So again, really representative of Southern California and where we are. And then lots of student services, like I said, and lots of ways to get involved outside of the classroom. We have some stuff specifically within the Drucker School itself. So things like our finance club or our venture capital club. We have a lot of case competitions that you can get involved with. If you aren't familiar with case competitions, it's a lot like Shark Tank, where you come in with a business idea and you pitch that and you compete against other business schools or other students from other business schools. And we do them locally, we do them all across the country. So those are really cool if you're kind of in that entrepreneur space. We have a lot of opportunities through Claremont Graduate University within the larger graduate school. So I mentioned some of those resources, like we have a writing and rhetoric resource center that is specific for just graduate students. If you see yourself teaching at any point, we have a great program called Preparing Future Faculty. Sets you up to, fills in all of those things to be an effective faculty member that a graduate program wouldn't specifically go over. And then also lots of opportunities and resources through the larger Claremont colleges, because we are a member of the Claremont colleges. So things like a library, our counseling services, and a lot of affinity groups that you can join. Okay. So this is my contact information. I think we do have some time for Q&A. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So we can. If you have questions now, definitely happy to answer those questions now. Otherwise, you can always reach out and let me know afterwards. Shoot me an email, give me a call. I'm definitely happy to help out there. But if there are any questions, happy to take them now.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
So, like, I am interested, and will I be in contact with you, and will you have me contact with like an admission or a counselor, let's say, or will I be just in contact with you only?
Yeah, so if you're interested in applying to our program, I would be your main point of contact for now, help you through the admissions process, answer any questions that you have, also get you connected to maybe some of our program staff or faculty. But yeah, I'll be your main point of contact.
Got it, thank you.
Of course.
I have one question. So for the GRE and GMAT tests, who are the people that they need to take this?
Sorry, one more time?
The GRE and GMAT tests. Is it like everyone coming to the graduate school need to take those tests, or are like only specific students?
Yeah, it's really gonna be dependent on your program and what their requirements are. From what I've seen, those tests were pretty much optional during the pandemic, but now a lot of schools are requiring them again. So some schools may just flat out require them no matter what. But a lot of schools are offering a lot more flexibility in terms of maybe waiver requirements. Like for us, there's a list of about 6 or 7 things that if you meet at least one of them, you may be able to waive that exam. It's the type of bachelor's degree that you got, like if it's a little bit more STEM focused or math heavy, we may waive it there. If you went to a certain type of accredited school, we might waive it. Sometimes work experience can be waivers there. So it's really just going to depend on the program. But again, from what I've seen, most programs are requiring it again, but offering a lot more flexibility than before in terms of waivers.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have a question on, well, it's more like regards to like an MBA. Is there like a bad reason why you should pursue MBA, or they're just like flat out just upsides for it?
I think it's that question of whether or not you want to go specialized or generalized. There's pluses and minuses for both directions. You know, the plus with an MBA is that it does allow that flexibility. It does open doors for other directions that you may want to go. Definitely for management, if you see yourself in a management space, like if you know you want to manage people, an MBA is going to be really valuable. But I guess the negatives would be like, you don't get a chance to specialize on a lot of those hard skills. So if you really see yourself working in a technical space that maybe you don't have the training in just yet, and maybe you don't feel like, well, I don't necessarily have time on my own, but if I did this in a program, this would be a great way to kind of build up those technical skills. Or you don't see yourself in a management space. Like if you don't see yourself managing people, an MBA may not be as valuable as, you know, a specialized degree. So there definitely are negatives to it, but it's just kind of about where you see yourself in terms of your career trajectory. Because I think both a specialized degree or an MBA could serve you well in the same way, but it would just be about which serves you a little bit better.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Of course. And then will the waivers be available on the website? So they are published on our website, but also too, if you reach out directly to me specifically for our waivers, I can send you the list just over email, if that's easier.
Perfect. I think there are no more questions. Thank you, Mr. Gold, for all the wonderful presentation. And I'll quickly pass it on to Jillian to take a quick picture. So thank you to Mr. Gold. Again, quickly announcements on the 12/4, we have our gingerbread house decorating. Please sign up. And if you already signed up, please make sure to join at 12/6. December 6th, we have our Con Resnick, how to prepare for internship and full-time position. And at 5 o'clock, the AA election, president and vice president elections will begin. And remember, at that time, before 5 o'clock, the executive application will be closed. The directorship application will still be open, but please, the deadlines are coming in soon, so make sure to apply as soon as possible. Thank you, guys.